Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Daily Connoisseur. I have such an amazing guest for you today. I am so excited for this interview. We have Bryan Kozlowski here. He is author of the new book, Long Live the Queen, 23 Rules for Living from Britain's Longest Reigning Monarch. And he's also the author of The Jane Austen Diet, which is another book I have recommended on the channel. So I am so excited for this conversation. Bryan, welcome to my channel.
I am so excited to be here after a few months of talking to you, by email. This is such a treat for me. Thank you for having me.
I know I've been looking forward to this, since the new year. So I have so much to talk to you about. I've got all these, I've got all these notes, and I just have to say, your books are incredible. I love your books. And I discovered Jane Austen Diet. I bought it. And then I didn't read it right away. I had it on the shelf because it's actually quite hard for me to find time to sit down and read a book. I usually listen to audiobooks, but I wanted this physical copy of the book. And then I started reading it and things just started clicking. And I did an interview, which you saw because I sent it to you, or not an interview. I did a video on intermittent fasting.
Right.
And I tied a lot of it into your book, Jane Austen Diet.
Yeah.
So that's how we met. And then I introduced myself to you, just told you about that video. And then you kindly sent me your new book. So this is Long Live the Queen, 23 Rules for Living. So I'm so excited to talk about this with you. I don't even know
Me
where to
too.
begin.
Oh, me too. No, and I too was so tickled when I started reading all the Madame Chic books. Just the lovely similarities that I kept on finding between what you discovered sort of independently in your experience with Madame Chic's lifestyle philosophies, and years later down the road, what I kind of independently discovered with the Queen. And there's a lot of commonalities there, and mainly because I think they come from a very similar generation, and it's a generation that's kind of rapidly disappearing. So I'm so glad that you kind of recorded kind of as a time capsule those life philosophies that you did, and I think it's so important to record the Queen's philosophies of how she handles food or exercise, or how she deals with stress. Those things are so important to record right now, while she's still alive, and while she still can be an example to us all.
Exactly. I mean, that is so true. And I was laughing because all throughout the books, there are so many parallels to Madame Chic. And so if you're one of my readers and you're watching this, I would love to hear what you thought about that, because throughout the book, I just have Madame Chic, Madame Chic. I kept writing Madame Chic because they have so many similar lifestyle philosophies, I guess you could say. Isn't that funny?
Yeah,
Um,
it
and
is. It is. Yeah, go ahead.
You're right, because it's like recording a slice of life. For me, the Madame Chic books were a slice of life. And that was back in 2001, which
Mm,
doesn't seem that long ago, but it was actually quite long ago.
mm.
And the way that Madame Chic lived is really dying out. I mean, I don't even know if people do that anymore in Paris, like how she truly lived. And so you're so right with recording how the Queen lives. It's so important that we do this, because who knows what the next generation of royals, if they will carry on her traditions. I'm sure they will in many ways, and then in other ways it'll be modernized, and those ways will be forgotten.
Right. It is interesting. The William and Catherine are definitely much more in line with the Queen's rules for living than let's say Harry and Meghan are. And so there's a lot of hope that I think they're passing along those secrets, and secrets of kind of self-preservation, of how to be in this game for the long haul, and how to stay healthy and sane. And it's great to also know that what's relevant for them and what kind of keeps them sane and balanced can also keep us sane and balanced, even though their lives are so far removed from our own. That was one of the joys of this project for me, to see how to see how relevant it was for in my life, down here in South Florida. It's like it was so easy to put some of these habits, these rules into practice. And I really now can't imagine life without them. Kind of very similar to your own journey. They're so now ingrained, and they make my life so much more balanced and productive. I don't ever want to go back to how I used to think and live.
That's right. I have that same exact experience where I literally can't go back
Yeah,
to how I used to do certain things. Now,
yeah.
I have a funny list of things that I can never do again now that I've read your book. But before we get into that, what can you share what the which lesson has impacted you the most in your life? What was the one lesson out of the 23 that you would say has changed your life the most?
It's going to sound so silly and so simplistic, but I don't even remember the number now. But it's where I am. It's the section where I'm talking about how the queen approaches food. And it's funny. It is sort of a food rule, but it has huge ramifications, I think, for multiple areas in your life. And that is how the queen sort of maintains her willpower, maintains her self-control. And that's that rule for me that has actually most impacted me. And so the queen has never dieted. She's never deprived herself of anything that she enjoys. She's not really that fussy about food, but she also knows what she likes, and she's never deprived herself. Um, but it's a lot of people kind of assume that it's just because she has phenomenal amounts of willpower that she can resist kind of daily food temptations, but that's not necessarily the case. When you really study the daily nuts and bolts of her life, it's that there's evidence that she really understands willpower itself and self-control, and how that really reacts in her life. In that, I know that I used to think of willpower and self-control as being this sort of airy virtue. You either have it or you don't have it, or it comes and goes at odd moments in your life. That's actually not how willpower operates. People who have actually studied willpower, scientists have studied willpower in the laboratory, see it as much more of a predictable commodity than that. It's sort of like the battery on your cell phone or a muscle in your arm. It's something that gets used and tired throughout the day. And in order for it to operate at peak condition, you need to recharge it. And the best way to recharge your willpower is to give yourself permission to indulge in something that feels special for you, that feels luxurious to you, no matter what that is. So, what do we find the queen doing every single day at 5 p.m.? She takes time and she enjoys her, yes, for tea. Yeah, bravo for her tea time ritual. And it is not just a cup of tea. It is, I write in the book, it is this like borderline religious sacred ritual in her life, where she puts aside all work at 5 p.m. and she does have an enormously busy schedule. So this is a very unique time for her, where she puts aside work, she brews her own pot of tea, a little trolley comes in with some tea time goodies like scones or perhaps a cake, some sandwiches, and she lets herself go. And she indulges in what now we know as her favorite meal of the day. And it's so important that to recognize. I know for me, when I started doing this, when I started trying to obey at least the spirit of this rule, and it's not as lavish, though I do try to get out my old china and old china cups and try to make it special, even if it's just me. I noticed not only am I able to exhibit more willpower throughout the day when it comes to food temptations, but throughout all different facets of my life, whether it comes to work ethic or my relationship with others, how I interact with the world, it's just my willpower, my self-control is just given that boost. And if you try to do this every day, I think you will see this also in your life. And of course, it doesn't have to be tea. It could be anything that feels special, that feels like a luxury to you. And don't see it as something that's selfish. The queen is one of the least obsessed people on the planet. And yet, this is a non-negotiable hour for her in her day, because she knows once she can, recharge, and once her willpower is reactivated like it is, so many people, so many different things are going to benefit when she's fully recharged.
That there's so much I want to say to that. That's so good because, in Lessons from Madame Chic, there's that chapter called Deprive Yourself Not. And that has been my philosophy too. And it's so true. And in your book, you cite that study about the willpower experiment
Mm,
where, what was it? Two groups of students, one was given a chocolate chip cookie and the others were given radishes, but they couldn't have the cookie. And then
right.
after that, they worked on a puzzle. And the people who had exerted willpower with the radishes, they actually did worse on the puzzle. I'm probably messing this whole thing up. But
No,
the
no,
point,
you got her. Yeah.
yeah, but the
Yeah.
point is that the people who were able to enjoy the cookie were able to focus more on the project.
On the hard mental task, because what now researchers have discovered is that you don't have a food willpower or a work willpower. You actually have just like one lump of willpower throughout your day. And if you kind of exert a lot of willpower throughout your day, that's you won't have a lot left over for anything else. So it's all kind of lumped together in one bulk of willpower. So if you recharge yourself, no matter how it is, even if it's just like giving yourself a 10-minute foot massage, I don't know, like something, if whatever you do, that will boost up that willpower through everything in life. So that will help you resist all those unnecessary things that you really do want to resist in life.
It makes so much sense to me. And that's why, I mean, extreme diets and things like that. Well, I've never even tried them, but I just know they're not going to work for me because I
Mm.
can't, I just know you eventually cave, you eventually, you have to get that thing. And then you usually display um, poor choices, right? So it's like, I would much rather have tea once a day and have a delicious treat or cake with it than deprive myself of that joy and then binge on something later in the week. It's not healthy. I love that.
Right, and I think the important footnote to this, and a lot of people, and I know I thought of this too when I came into this and said, well, I can't indulge like that every day. I would gain so much weight, or I would, that would like absolutely be an unhealthy mess. That's actually not the case. Again, researchers do know that of something, this really magical thing called positive procrastination, which is knowing that your brain actually derives a lot of pleasure when you just give yourself permission to indulge. It's almost that is the bulk of your brain, just wants the pleasure itself. There's just that permission. So once you give yourself permission, when you do arrive at that indulging moment in your day, you naturally scale back what you eat. And researchers have found this time and time again. Once you give yourself permission, people just automatically, naturally moderate how much they eat. And you see this very much in the queen's own life. Yes, that trolley comes in and there's a whole bunch of goodies on there, but she eats, everyone who observes her at this time period, she eats very little. She'll have a little bit of scone, but most of it gets fed to the corgis. She'll have maybe one or two sandwiches. And she has this favorite cake. It's called chocolate biscuit cake that she absolutely adores. And she likes that, very frequently, but she'll take a very small sliver of the cake every time. And so, yeah, it's just you actually do scale back. And I find this myself. It's the permission itself that your brain actually really wants. And it's that that innocent permission to indulge. It's very helpful to keep that in mind. You're not going to pork out if you give yourself permission
Mhm.
to indulge.
Now, how much of this do you think is European uh, habits versus American habits? Because over here, we are so, I don't know, I feel like our eating culture in America is so messed up and it's been so messed up for so long. And it's just so unhealthy, the attitude toward food here. Um,
Yeah.
I did a video about analyzing what I eat in a day videos on YouTube. And there's no pleasure involved. It's all about calories and deprivation and everything and looking good in a bathing suit and all this. There's no pleasure with it. But yet I see so many parallels with the way the French like to eat. And I would argue that they, even more so than the British, like enjoy
Right.
their food, you know. So how much of this is a cultural thing, and how much is it a royalty thing, would you say? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does make sense. You do have the cultural European aspect coming in, but you also have the Queen's very unique personal history coming into play.
Right.
Whereas you have to understand too, like you did mention, Brits do have a very different relationship with food than, let's say, the French do. And a lot of people in that generation, that's coming from um, the Queen's very unique experience during World War II. We often forget that she lived during a very unique time in Britain that experienced severe food rationing. So, basic staples like butter and meat and sugar were severely restricted. And it's interesting, everyone that kind of a hallmark of that generation, of the wartime generation, is yes, enjoying food, but also interestingly developing a very healthy detachment from food. At that time, during World War II, during the rationing, it was almost seen as kind of crass and almost unpatriotic to get to be too much like a foodie, to be too to get your emotions too worked up around food. So yeah, a hallmark of that generation is so almost like an emotional detachment from food. And that is important because I think, like you're observing, we do kind of have this, it's almost like a fetishizing of foodieism in America,
Hmm.
where it's like it's over the top, it's so overblown emotional. It's not just like a simple pleasure. We, like everything else, we tend to exaggerate. So our foodieism has become like that. And it's important to know that the Queen isn't a foodie and like that, and that's important because psychologists would call her almost like a cool eater. You probably came across that word in the book. Cool eaters are able to put emotional distance between themselves and the food, and that's important because though you want to enjoy food, you also don't want to be mentally slobbering over food throughout the day. Cool eaters are much more able to um, put resist daily food temptations because they're not burdened by all of these emotions, these memories when it comes to food. So yeah, definitely the Queen would be characterized as one of those cool eaters, which has helped her.
I think so many people would want to be a cool eater.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
many people, their lives are run by food. They just think, and I have actually experienced that as well. Funny enough, the intermittent fasting for me has reset that, where it's just like all day long,
Mm,
what am I going to eat next? You know.
right,
Now I
right.
wrote down this quote from, I don't know what chapter it was from, but um, you wrote, displaying anything other than a nonchalant attitude toward food would be considered déclassé,
Mm,
to them. And that, I love that. I thought that was so hilarious. Like a nonchalant attitude toward food, like, oh, I could take it or leave it. Like, I don't care. That
right,
it's so, that is the goal, right? A nonchalant attitude toward food. We don't want to run our lives. We don't want to be
right,
constantly thinking about what we're going to eat. And then when we're eating it, constantly beating ourselves up over what we're eating, and then
right,
feel like we have to go to the gym the next day. I mean, so many people are slaves to food in their
right,
minds, and so
right, right.
to develop that nonchalant attitude toward it is great. And I love, I think that's hilarious. It's déclassé to not have a nonchalant attitude toward food.
Yeah, and this is again, I mean, other than the wartime aspect, this is really systemic within. If you read any sort of case studies of British aristocrats, of kind of especially of the Queen's generation, this was pummeled into them very early on to develop that emotional detachment from food. It was just seen as really classless to prioritize food to an extreme amount. It just was so tactless to do that. Interestingly, we were talking about cool eaters. Prince Charles went the whole different direction here, and he is like the hottest eater. And I mean, he is like, it's so funny. I love to in the book to find these find other royals where I could compare and contrast with, and just because it illuminates better, I think, especially for Americans. Okay, who has like survived better? Who has lived a more balanced, a more whole life, and who hasn't? And you can really just pick apart so many different facets where people have gone away from these rules that the Queen has followed, and Prince Charles is one of them. I mean, it's pretty extreme when he goes to travels abroad. His staff has had to send out detailed instructions to hotel chefs, kind of outlining the precise dimension and texture of his tea sandwiches. So that's sort of like
Really?
the epitome of, yeah, that's like the epitome of being a hot eater. And honestly, I know some people like that today in my life. I mean, where it's just like food, like you said, it just
Most people are
consumes
like
them.
that, I feel like.
Yeah, it's just, they
Yeah.
get so stressed out. And
Yeah.
even when it comes to like healthy food, right? It's like they're putting their so much stress they're putting into like trying to eat healthy and trying, and yes, we all try, of course, but I mean, the level of stress that they're accumulating over this is just not worth it. And that is one of the lessons, of course, in the book. Just be a cooler eater like that.
Mm-hmm. I was
Yeah.
laughing about how when she's at a banquet dinner and when she's done, you're done too. So they will literally take your plate,
Oh yeah, yeah,
even if you're not finished. I think that's funny.
yeah.
Um, okay, so I told you that I had some things that I could never do again. And one of them is eat a banana by peeling it. And just eating the banana. I'm literally, where was I? I told you this. I was in the waiting room at the doctor's office reading that
Yeah.
part. I'm like crying. I was
Oh
crying,
God.
laughing so hard, and I had my mask on. It was just the way you
Okay.
worded it was so funny. But the Queen eats her banana with a knife and fork. Is that correct?
It is correct. Yes.
Now, do other royals do this too? Like, does the Duchess of Cambridge do this?
Um, I'm
We
not
don't know.
sure of that, but
Yeah.
I that there's no there's no reports of how Catherine eats a banana. That hasn't been allowed to slip out yet.
Uh,
But no, it's yeah. This is it underlines. I don't know if you wanted to keep on going with that one, but I can
no,
kind
tell
of
me about it.
explain. I think yeah, what this is, what rule this is underpinning here. The Queen doesn't eat a banana like we would eat a banana. She says that's kind of the way a monkey would eat it. So why would I eat like a monkey? No, but it's
Sorry, I think that's so
that's a
funny.
quote from the Queen. Yeah. Um, but so yeah, so we often don't think of etiquette, of table rules, of table manners, of having anything to do with our health or longevity. It's kind of like always allocated to those nice but don't really matter things in life. When actually, if you boil down all the etiquette rules the Queen follows, and there are a ton, and some are very complicated, and some on the surface make no sense. But what
Mm-hmm.
they all are trying to do, I mean, this is from like the creation of etiquette rules from the medieval times. They're all trying to get us to limit the rate at which food enters our mouth, to slow us down. So that it's a good way to kind of understand every single table manner rule out there. Either trying to get us to slow down or to take smaller bites. So you mentioned a banana. There's also, of course, like the classic case of the bread roll.
The bread roll.
Right, right. How would the Queen attack a bread roll? Well, like the most efficient, the most logical way would be the way I used to do it, is just crack a bread roll open and butter it and start eating your way. That's the most efficient. But table manners actually try to make eating less efficient, more difficult. So etiquette dictates that the Queen takes a very small mouthful, a bite of, I'm sorry, very small morsel of the bread at a time, butter that individual piece, and then pop it in her mouth, and then of course repeat the process. So obviously drastically slowing down the whole bread eating process. And it all underlines this very clever biological fact, which is while we're eating, it takes about 20 minutes for your stomach to communicate to your brain that your stomach has had enough to eat. So if you're not slowing down that rate at which food enters your mouth, you're going to very easily zoom past that internal biological cue, and end up eating really more than you would ever have to feel satisfied. Most of us push that that internal cue beyond it at a point that we don't actually need to get there. We could scale back that down and actually feel full with a lot less.
That's so true. And you hit the nail on the head. And it's so funny because I am the author of etiquette books, but you stated this in a way that I literally have never thought about it before. That it's designed, and it's so funny because I pride myself on being a very efficient person. I'm extremely
Right.
efficient. That's like what I excel at. I mean, I can just knock off a to-do list. I'm so efficient. But you don't want to be efficient with your eating. You want, I speak to so many women and they say, Jennifer, my entire family, they eat so fast. I spend an hour cooking dinner, they wolf it down, and I'm still
Mm.
there, and then they're off. And this is like the plague of modern dinner times. And
Yeah.
it's so sad because people don't understand there's so many, not only digestive benefits to slowing
Mm.
down, but just a societal benefit. I mean, we can sit down and talk to each other. We don't have to wolf down our meal, and we could just have elegance about it, But I think that there are so many households out there where uh, typically the woman, but not always, is a slower eater, and then like the rest of the family chomp it down. I don't know. I'm just kind of speaking of my own experience.
No, yeah,
My own
yeah, yeah.
experience here, but I'm still laughing about the banana. Okay, so if anybody has read Lessons from Madame Chic, you know the part in it where Madame Chic finally could not take my barbaric ways anymore. And at the end of my stay, she should have told me this at the beginning, but she was probably just trying to be, nice and polite. But at the end of my stay, she just couldn't take it. It was like one of my last dinners with them. And she schooled me on how to eat the bread because prior to this, I was slathering butter. And, I'm really surprised at myself because I like to observe other people. That's what we do. We observe other people, right?
Right.
I observe other
Right.
people. I'm super observant. So I can't believe I didn't catch on that they were not doing what I was doing because I caught on to so many other things with them, The bread, I just love bread so much, so I'm slathering the butter on and I'm dying now. Like I'm so embarrassed just chomping it down, and she had to stop me. And she told me, you have to take a piece off and put the butter on. And now her son was living with us at the time. He was 23. He was dying of embarrassment that she told me this. Because I guess it's bad etiquette to do what she did too, to be
Right,
honest with you.
right,
You can't correct other
right.
people. But
Mhm.
she just couldn't take it anymore. So her son, he was stopping. He's like, please don't. He was trying to stop her because he was embarrassed.
Oh,
I was embarrassed. He was embarrassed. I don't think she was embarrassed, but it was just so funny. And I was mortified because then I started thinking back to what else did I do? You know what I mean?
yeah.
That was just
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
bad. Which brings me to my next point.
Yeah, but it's just not something that, I mean, I wasn't educated like that growing
Yeah.
up. I
Well,
mean,
we're
it was,
not taught that
it,
in America.
no,
Yeah.
it's so far removed from kind of our upbringing that I'm not, I'm not surprised that you completely were oblivious. It wasn't on your radar at all. So,
Yeah. But
yeah.
I'm pretty good at picking things up like that. I mean, I am like when we go to England a lot and they have so many different customs there. And I try to pick up on them pretty quickly, but I
Mm.
think now maybe I'm traumatized from that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But so, okay, I'll never eat a banana the same. The other thing I can't say now without feeling completely you ruined this for me, but I can no longer say lunch.
Ah,
Say
yes.
luncheon.
Me too. Me too.
What did you write? I wrote my notes here. Oh yes, lunch. Saying lunch sounds vulgar.
Yeah.
Can you explain that to me?
Yeah, it's special. This kind of stems from the late Queen Mother. She, lunch is a slang. Lunch is a slang for luncheon.
That's right.
The proper word is luncheon. So, Elizabeth wasn't really raised to use a lot of slang words, and so it's called luncheon at the palace. You never call it lunch. And it's psychologists, everything we're talking here, psychologists call this having a little bit of consumption snobbery, which is actually a really good thing because it's like what you talk about in your books. Getting out the nice china. Um, Dressing a certain way every day. Especially when it comes to food. Researchers have found time again. When people think they're drinking a more expensive bottle of wine, they drink it slower. When they are in a more like fancy environment that they're eating, they eat slower. They, you know, are more moderate with how much they eat. So consumption snobbery is a real thing, and it's a great helpful thing to tap into to kind of elevate sort of your um dining habits, and not in an extreme way, but just in terms of like, do you use lunch or luncheon, you know, little things like that can give you a little bit more consumption snobbery in your life, and can help you out.
So, but I feel like so many people would start saying luncheon, and their families or their friends would look at them and be like, who do you think you are? Luncheon, you know? Or should we just
I
start
know.
saying it?
Yeah, just start a trend. Yeah, no, it's like you said in one of, I love you said in one of your emails to me, I think it was like last week, or like, we are dinosaurs going
Yes,
extinct.
that's
And
true.
yeah, yeah, but it's you know, I'm now proud to be a going extinct dinosaur. I really wouldn't want to live any other way. It's a it's a very satisfying kind of beautiful way to live, and I'm very happy and content to be one. So
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
yeah.
This brought up a memory of mine too from Paris that I actually never wrote about in my books, but okay, so it's kind of parallel. So when I went to dinner with their son and his friend or brother. I can't even remember now, it was so long ago. So they took me to dinner before we were about to go out to a party, but I had already eaten dinner. Okay, I'd picked up some like baguette jambon sandwich on the way home from school. So I wasn't hungry. And also I felt a bit awkward because I don't know, I didn't want them to buy me dinner. I was really young. Okay. So I
Yeah.
just, bad social everything. Okay. So just picture this. So we're sitting there at the restaurant and they're ordering food and they're like, what would you like? And this is all in French. My French was really bad. It still is.
Mm.
And I kept saying this, I'm still dying. I kept saying, j'ai déjà mangé, which means I already ate. Well, it's you're not supposed to say that. That's like so vulgar. It's kind of like,
Mm.
I mean, all of my French listeners right now, tell me about this. Am I being dramatic or am I wrong? But I think you're supposed to say, you know, j'ai déjà déjeuné. I already had my lunch. I already had my
Mm.
dinner. J'ai déjà dîné.
Mm.
Instead of so I already dined, as opposed to I already ate. Like ate would be like for pigs in a trough.
Right, right,
You know.
right.
So anyway, I kept saying that and they kept looking at me and I still remember that. I'm like, why are they looking at me like that? There's this like American in front of them just committing faux pas left and right. But it's kind of the same thing, lunch versus luncheon. So I think I'm going to
It
start
is.
saying luncheon.
Yeah, it is. And I read this one fascinating book while doing research for the Queen book. It was called The Art of the Table, I think. So it was all about the history of etiquette. And that's pretty much just like what you said. That's the point of etiquette, to kind of separate us from beasts, to separate us from animals. And that's kind of the gist of it all.
Separate us from beasts. I love that. So I'm drinking in honor of Her Majesty. I'm drinking Darjeeling tea because
Oh, okay.
you wrote
Perfect.
that she drinks Darjeeling and Assam, right? A
Hmm.
mix of the two,
And yeah, and she likes Earl Grey, but yeah, those definitely those two.
and Earl Grey. So does she have a custom blend mix, do you know, or is it like one that you buy from Harney and Sons or something?
No, she does have, yeah, she has a custom mix. And that's what's served at her garden parties. But that's kind of only available within the palace confines. So
So we can't buy it.
no.
Hmm.
Unless I don't know, maybe you can like buy it in one of like the Buckingham Palace gift shops when they
Oh,
reopen or something. I don't know. But
yeah, I'll have to see
yeah,
next time I'm there. That's
yeah,
funny.
yeah.
Okay, and what's your favorite type of tea?
Earl Grey. Earl Grey. But I'm talk about vulgar. I kind of I really do, and this is kind of a part. This is how I indulge.
I think I know
I
what you're
do
going to
like
say. Say it.
I will. It's kind of not a type of tea. It's kind of a way of enjoying tea. It's called builder's tea.
PG
So
tips?
yeah. Well, no. So builder's tea, I mean, from what I think I have gathered from builder's tea is when it's sort of just kind of like the workman's kind of tea. So you like it really strong and you like it sweet and you like it creamy. So that's how I kind of prefer my tea. The Queen does not, from everything I read, does not really take sugar in her tea.
Mm,
But I do like it sweet and creamy. So, but hey, that's how, that's my tea time. That's how I indulge. So it's
yeah.
it's perfectly okay. But yeah, I've always heard of that term called builder's tea. It's kind of the workman's kind of style tea.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's funny because I mean, I personally like really high end teas. Like I'll get some really select blends but I
Mm.
also like PG tips. Like I love PG tips. And isn't that kind of considered builder's tea?
Yeah, well, like a more like working class kind of tea. Yeah. And I love Yorkshire tea. Like that's my favorite.
Oh,
that brand Yorkshire.
okay. I
Yeah,
have to
that
try
has
that. I don't think I might have tried that. Yeah. So that's your
it makes a
favorite.
yeah, because it makes a really strong. Like you can just put one bag in a whole pot, and it will make a
Mhm.
strong brew. Um, I don't like really weak tea.
I don't
So
either.
no,
Now, do you drink coffee as well?
no, I
You don't
don't.
drink coffee at all.
No, no, I don't. It's like I don't know. I think I'm going through some like hormonal stage right now because coffee always just is now making me break out, and I don't know
Huh.
what that has to do with. And I'm like, I'm in my 30s, so it's kind of like
Yeah.
always like dispiriting when you're breaking out in your 30s. But so I've had to give up coffee for a while. I do like iced coffee, but no, I would rather have tea more than anything else now. I've kind of trained my Anglophile brain to like tea above anything else.
So when you wake up, you have a cup of tea.
I don't. I wait to have tea until tea time at
Oh,
3 o'clock.
wow. That
Yeah.
is some Jane Austen style, what's it called? What's the
It
word I'm
is. I'm
looking for?
trying to like right, like
Yeah,
prolong the time. So I don't actually have. I try not to have caffeine when I first wake up.
that is so good. I drink coffee when I wake up. I
Mm,
definitely do. So
yeah.
I drink coffee in the morning and then tea in the afternoon. I drink a lot of caffeine.
Mm.
So
Yeah. If it's working for you, keep it up.
it seems to be working so far, but I don't know what the long-term effects are going to be. Um, so some other things I wanted to talk to you about were, if I can't read my writing is horrible. I wanted to talk about what a deliberate rester is. Deliberate rest. So
Right.
if we can
So
explain
yeah.
this to the people watching.
Right. Well, I think in your books you say something like Madame Chic would kind of be a more active her resting time would be more active, right? So like her leisure time would be more active. I think that's how you said it. And the queen is exactly the same way. So she is something psychologists would call, or behavioral psychologists would call a deliberate rester, which is people who don't equate resting with doing nothing, with just laying on a couch and zombieing out.
Mm-hmm.
When the queen rests, she likes to do something she enjoys, and that's mainly a kind of a physical activity, whether going on a nice brisk walk or going on a horseback ride. She also loves doing crossword puzzles, and that it's always for her, resting means either using her mind or using her body in some way that she enjoys. It's very rarely doing nothing, sitting down. She really
So no
doesn't
binge
watch.
watching Netflix.
No, she doesn't watch a lot of television. She watches the races. She loves like the horse races, but yeah, there are reports that she is a kind of like a big closeted soap opera fan, but those are only gossipy reports. So but no, she doesn't watch a lot of television. But it is important, I think, to remember that she does rest, because we often get this very lopsided image of her of being this relentless, worker with this extreme work ethic. And that's true. It's kind of hard to believe, but only for most of her reign, she's only got on and off 2 days every year where she's actually doing nothing. That's Christmas and Easter. All other days, those red boxes filled with parliamentary paperwork, those are delivered to her every single day. And even when she's on vacation, even when she's at Balmoral, but she does take time to rest, because I think she really knows her family history very well, and that there's been quite a few individuals in the past and even in the present that have either wrecked their own health or have wrecked the health of the monarchy because of their kind of refusal to take a break and rest. But the way the queen rests is very entwined with her personality, with her temperament, and that she is a huge introvert. And it's kind of hard to believe, since she is like the most famous woman in the world and she has to shake everybody and their brother's hand. But at heart, she is an introvert. And introverts recharge very differently. They rest very differently than extroverts. I'm an introvert, so I definitely have appreciated this. And that introverts require really low stimulating environments, a lot of quiet, a lot of solitude, and privacy, other than maybe like a few trusted family members, a few friends. And that's why the Queen, again, guards her annual pilgrimage to Balmoral so highly. It really is an introvert's paradise up there. She says things like, I can go walking for miles and miles and miles and not see anybody. For an introvert, that's just golden. And
Yeah.
she really needs those times to rest. And that's how she rests, not necessarily doing nothing. Resting for her is kind of the environment she's in, and does it give her more solitude and more privacy?
Mm. That's so interesting. Yeah, I'm an introvert too, and
Mm,
I just classified myself recently after reading two specific books, and it's kind of something where I'm thinking, how did I not know this about myself? But I mean, I guess I knew it, but I understand myself more deeply, and it's so nice to understand yourself and not think, oh, there's not something horribly wrong with me, like I used to think there was, because I can only imagine, as if the Queen is an introvert, just
mm.
those throngs of people that she has to meet on a regular basis must really drain her battery. So I mean, that would be exhausting for me. I would have to be completely alone for a few hours after something like that happens,
Right, right,
being
right.
around, and all the parties and socializing, and I mean, obviously there's work too, but the banquets and all of that too, it's hard.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And that's why it was really sad when the British government in the 90s made her give up her yacht, which a yacht kind of sounds very luxurious and kind of unnecessary.
That's gonna sound bad right now.
Right. No, but it's very sad
I'm gonna
because,
bust out the violins.
yeah, 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 yeah. Edit this part out. Yeah. No, but no, monarchies throughout Europe have retained their yachts, and it sounds like something that is like, oh, that's such a luxury. But if you are an introvert, if you need privacy, that was really the one opportunity for her to gain complete privacy. Like, we value it today. Like, if we can shut a door, the Queen really can't do that. She really is never off duty in that sense. So it was sad. It was sad that they were kind of just thinking a little bit more short term like that, and made her give it up. There's much more ramifications of keeping the monarch healthy, keeping her sane. Like, that's much more valuable than just like penny pinching on something like that. So
Hmm.
anyway, yeah.
I'm nervous about that one.
But no, yeah, you can edit that out. That's fine. I don't care.
I
um,
won't.
but yeah, you can. But I think, okay, and a little bit more practical example is that just think, if the Queen is an introvert, think how much this. I know it's awful and it's like a terrible situation throughout the world, but think how much she has valued and probably got a lot of pleasure from lockdown, from this pandemic lockdown. I mean, and I think there was just a report a few days ago where it's just like, this is the first time in decades where the Queen actually has a little bit of a rest. I mean, like
Mhm.
I said, she's only gotten 2 days off a year for most of her reign, and that was with into her 90s. So this time is probably golden for her, and she is um, probably, of course, concerned for her country, but also personally taking a lot of pleasure and enjoying every minute of it while it lasts.
Yeah, I think introverts and extroverts have reacted differently to the lockdowns for sure. A lot of I've discussed this with people in my family who are extroverts, and we laugh about it because for introverts, and there's a lot of comedy sketches on YouTube that are quite funny about this. But for us, the lockdown is not that bad because we don't. It's an excuse to not go places. So
Mhm.
it's good to
Right.
look at the positive side of everything. That's definitely for
Oh yeah,
sure.
definitely. Yeah,
Um,
she has a bishop once kind of asked her this question, like, how do you deal with things, like deal with stressful times, things that take you out of your comfort zone, new experiences like this lockdown. Like, how do you deal with it with such equanimity? You seem to approach it with such calmness. And she responded in such a brilliant way. And she said she kind of revs up her optimism beforehand, no matter what the situation is. And she, as she says, sets out to enjoy it. She finds that one thing that she can enjoy in it. And it's this marvelous skill that psychologists call benefit finding. And it's one of the top skills of resilient people around the world. Can you, even if it's an uncomfortable situation, can you find something good in it? And can you set out to enjoy it, as the Queen said? And it's important to remember, especially during this time. I know we're kind of coming towards the end of it, hopefully. But you know, has this kind of opened up certain opportunities in your life? As however nightmarish as it's been, you know, can you find something good in the situation that, you know, you probably won't ever get this opportunity again to enjoy? If you can kind of think like that, that's very much going into how the Queen thinks.
That's good advice, because, you know, so many people are struggling that it's definitely good to go there. Try to think of the positive, you know, if you can. Absolutely. Well, I mean, I could talk to you forever, but I want to talk about one more thing before we wrap up our interview, and that is the Windsor Facelift. Tell people what the Windsor what the Windsor Facelift is, and how can we achieve one?
It's so funny. I've gotten more questions about the Windsor Facelift than anything else. I had no idea that was going to garner so many questions. So the Windsor Facelift is it's a joke. It's a joke because the Queen hasn't had any plastic surgery. She's rejected that completely. But the only plastic surgery the Queen has had is the Windsor Facelift, which is you tie a Hermes scarf tightly around your chin, and you kind of keep all the jowls together, you know, and hold everything in nice and tight. That's the Windsor Facelift.
That's the Windsor Facelift.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, I don't have an Hermes scarf. I need to get one now. No, I have a Monkey scarf. I'm going to try it with that.
Okay. Yeah. Any scarf. Hey.
Any scarf. Well, Bryan, thank you so much for being on the channel. I hope that you will come back, because I feel like I could have talked to you for a few more hours about all of this, but
oh, thank you.
I just really highly recommend Bryan's book. It's called Long Live the Queen. And also, you must check out, whereas I've got all this stuff around me, you must check out the Jane Austen diet too. If you're a Jane Austen fan, this is such a good book. We didn't even get to talk about this one. We'll have to do something on this one.
We didn't.
It's so good. And your website is bryankozlowski.com?
Yes, that's it.
Yes. So I will leave all of Bryan's information in the show notes down below. And I hope that you will read his books and buy his books and share them, because they're so good. So thank you for being on the show, Bryan.
Thank you so much, Jennifer.